In everything that happened with Mamelodi Sundowns last week, with the coaches changing and all of that stuff and the questions we are asking, there's a very interesting thread that I picked up on. And it's encompassed in a tweet, in a quote that was said by Chairman Tlhopane Motsepe, Dr. Motsepe's son, who is the chairman of Mamelodi Sundowns. He said in the press conference, "We should not be slaves to our previous success." And that quote had me thinking, is South Africa, as a footballing country, do we pine so much for what we call our football, that we don't realize that maybe we haven't been successful like that? We look over the results that have come from that football, yet we love it so much that we don't care whether it's right or wrong. And this thing plays out everywhere. So I'll give you an example. Bafana has Coach Hugo Bruce, possibly the most successful coach in the last 20 years, Bafana wise, in terms of what he's been able to do, qualifying us quite twice for AFCON, getting us to the semi-finals, having 2 years where I think his win percentage is 50% or just over 50%. He's done a lot, but yet he also holds the distinction of being the most hated coach, the most pushed back against coach. You know, we speak about his selections, we speak about all of that stuff, and I don't think we've accepted and loved him properly because he doesn't play the type of football that South Africans tend to love. Now, in a grander, broader scheme of things, where I want to take this conversation is that there's two ways to look at this thing. There's two situations where I'm seeing South Africans, hesitate. So I'm going to start off with the easier of the two. Mamelodi Sundowns has now moved away from its South African core of coaches and developing South African coaches and doing all of that stuff that Tate Motsepe has spoken about. We've now got an international technical director, sporting director, who is in charge of Mamelodi Sundowns. We've now got an international coach who's not from South Africa, who's not necessarily black. And we've now seen, Sundowns shift towards a worldlier view. And when they've shifted that way, there's been a conversation when Ukadoso was brought in, when Rulani was moved out, that is Sundowns losing its culture? And is Sundowns losing what makes them Sundowns? So the change that I believe Mamelodi Sundowns is trying to do is to go, okay, fine, if we want to be successful in the world, maybe we need to start adopting some of the things that are done in the world. Maybe we need to change our structures, maybe we need to change our players, maybe we need to change the positioning of the club and all of those type of things. And there's been a little bit of pushback because there's a risk of maybe you might lose Shushan and Piano as it is right now. And to be frank, as successful as Shushan and Piano has been locally, can Shushan and Piano win you trophies? Because it's been failing up there. Different conversation, but it's been failing up there. So is Sundowns well within its rights to say maybe the next step that we need to take is to go into the direction they're going into now? And it might be uncomfortable, and it might be new, and it might be risky, but it's something as a club that needs to be done so that Mamelodi Sundowns can move into the future. I did a video about the crossroads where Sundowns was, where it's either you keep Pitso Rulani, Coach Mangoba, you keep that system, you carry on iterating on that system, and you say, okay, after Mangoba, we're gonna groom somebody. So Mangoba Zoibamba for 3-4 years, Sikrumu, and that person is gonna come in from inside. Maybe or Rulani is gonna get 5 years. Loftman is coming in under him. He takes over, similar to Pitso and Mangoba and Rulani. That the way that chain went, and you continue creating South African excellence that way. So that's the first one where it makes sense. Okay, you know what, man? You guys have done as much as you've done. You've spent all the monies. Maybe you need to take the next step and do something different to try and get to the places where you want to go. Sometimes you have to change you have to do things different if you want different results. Fine. This is the second one. The second one is the one that's a little bit more tricky. And the second one is where we're going to speak about the Kaizer Chiefs. When you listen to Kaizer Chiefs conversations, you hear two things that are mainly spoken about. You hear quality of players, and you hear our football. Now the question becomes, what is Chiefs' football? Especially after 9 years of jumping from base to base. So I'm going to start there. What is Kaizer Chiefs' football? Because let's be honest, this is not the Kaizer Chiefs of Shabalala and Yeye. This is not the Kaizer Chiefs of Doggies or Boskara. It's not the Chiefs of Abu Asin Tweleng. That identity has been watered down to the point where I believe it well and truly does not exist. I think Kaizer Chiefs is past the point where you can go back and say, we want to build on this thing. At least with Sundowns, they know that, okay, Shushan and Piano might have gotten lost at some point, but then Coach Pitso came in and they started rebuilding what Shushan and Piano means for the modern world, and Abu Rulani could then build on top of that. I think we are so far away from what Chiefs was that you have to look at something different today. And you have to at least be honest as to where Chiefs is after 9 years trophyless, after 9 years riderless, after 9 years, or at least let's say 6 years of bringing in random players and bringing all that stuff. Because when we speak about the quality of player, is the quality of player down to the player themselves and how adaptable they are? In terms of the player, man, they can play multiple positions, they can do multiple things on the pitch. How many of those players exist within our league right now? And how many of them were built and developed? Not found as the finished article. Can you build and develop, number one? But number two, what are you basing that quality on? Because I could have the best player in the world, but if they're playing in a system that doesn't make sense for them, am I now not killing the quality of that player? Am I now not looking at that player and saying, yeah, no, yazi inkomo lo muntu. But the truth is that you're judging a fish by its ability to fly. But here's the most interesting part, and especially with the Kaizer Chiefs, that I want to ask a question of. In the past 20 years, let's say post-Dimitri, maybe pre-Steve, right before Steve came in. Yeah, let's say post-Steve Kompela, Coach Steve Kompela, let me be respectful. The closest we've come to being an uber successful club, we won 2 leagues under Stuart Baxter. We know the type of football that he played, very heavy set play reliance, very heavy transition reliance, those type of things. He won the league twice. Then the next time we touched the top, lost it on the final day, it was with Ernst Middendorp. We know his football. It was helicopter football. It was, hey, cross and score, basically. Then after him came Gavin Hunt, who also doesn't play an exciting brand of football, but he almost won us a star. I believe that if he wasn't fired before those semi-finals, he probably wins us a star as the Kaizer Chiefs. Now the pattern here says that the football that has been successful for the Kaizer Chiefs has been the ugly football. So are we not chasing a pipe dream to say that we have this beautiful yazikasi football, it looks like Shushan and Piano, man? Or are we lying to ourselves? And the truth is that the real football Chiefs that is successful happens to be the one that we don't like. And maybe we should be building on that football instead of praising people who have played football that is great to look at. But I think Coach Atazwani finished 5th. That was the highest maybe that football has given us. Maybe you could say Coach Steve did something now. I'm not going to say that he was useless. He was top 3. He was getting to the finals and all of that stuff, but couldn't get over the line. Similar to how Mamelodi Sundowns is looking at their football and saying, we're playing Shushan and Piano. We love Shushan and Piano, but can it get us over the line? Can it, man? It hasn't been able to get us over the line. Man. Sorry to interrupt the video that I'm sure you're enjoying. But I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have shown me and my Overthinking Football platform. I'm a one-man band that's doing all of this, and I really do enjoy the comments about how, you know, Supersport needs to come fetch me and SABC and all of that stuff. And I think it speaks to the quality of the content, but also the amount of effort that I put in. So I just wanted to say thank you. But the truth is that Abo Supersport and all of those guys, yes, we're competing with them, but it's a completely different place. The sponsors are looking for former players, and to be honest with you, running some of these things is getting so difficult, and things have changed at home. So financially, it's a whole different world. So I wanted to try something new and come to the overthinkers, the people who watch the content, and say it would be incredible if you guys could contribute monthly towards the platform, towards keeping my lights on, but also making sure that all of the crazy things that I want to do, that I want to take Supersport on with, I can actually do. And just for 20 Rand every month, I think that would be an incredible contribution if you can make it. It may sound like a little, but if we can get a lot of people behind it, then we'll be able to carry on doing what I do. I'll be able to carry on giving you the content and also expanding it, because we don't have shows like this, and us content creators need help from our audiences. So I just came here to ask you if you can. Here is the account number that you guys can use in order to contribute. And I think, yeah, I'd be very grateful if you would. But anyway, let's get back to the video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And then it brings us to the broader conversation about South African football as a whole, where you look at the Pirates, one of our most exciting great teams, 23 points away from Sundowns. Because the truth of the matter is, whichever way you go with it, I think our teams are not willing to do what needs to be done either way. If you look at it from the South African context, Tate Motsepe put hundreds of millions of rands, I'm sure it's over R1 billion, that he's put into that team 20 years in order to support the local coaches, in order to make sure that they're grooming, that they're structuring, that they're doing all that stuff. Are we willing, as South African football, the people who are running it, the fans, on the ground level, all of that, are we willing to invest in it in order to build it to a place where it can be a world-beating type of football? Not something that we're naturally gifted with. You know, the conversation about being natural gift, you're naturally gifted at playing this football. I'm not going to develop you further because, hey, lentwani mnandi ku-10. I'm not going to teach him the other things that make him go from a South African 10 with great ability to a South African 10 with great ability that has added on other things, that is now competing with the world. Similar to Abu Penny. I'm sure Penny had great natural ability, but he was groomed that side, and they added the boring side. How do you run? How do you do this? How do you make this? How do you do to make him a world-beating striker? Are we willing to do that with our football? Number one. And I would venture to say no. But then number two, are we being honest with the fact that even at Bafana, even Sundowns to a degree, when they scaled the top of the mountain, they weren't playing South African football? And maybe we need to be honest and say, yazini guys, maybe iskop and donor helicopter is the way to go. Maybe at that level, Shem, you have to put down this ideal that we have and play that football, because that football gets you results. So I feel like as a country, we're sitting at a place where we've got our football, which is really good, but we're not willing to take it to the next level, or put resources towards taking it to the next level. That means let's study Tito and break down about Tito, about Skara. Let's break them down, like put it down all the way down to the bare bones, study it. Sprinkle some of the international influence on it. Take some other things, build it. You know, I often watch Abo Pep, and I watch breakdowns, and I watch Potifo football. You've heard about Rulani speak. When they speak about international football, Kibo Catenaccio. And they can break it down. Catenaccio is having 5 defenders, and you do this and you do that, but it becomes a 3, and da-da-da-da. Abo libero, when you play as a libero, this is fundamentally what the player has to do, and they have to know, and they have to move, and they have to do whatever. But when you look at South African football, have we broken down Ishugela? Have we broken down ukubam nandi? Have we broken down those concepts to the point where we can study them and improve them? Where's the South African book that explains why a South African 10 is strong? What are their weaknesses? What are their strengths? How do you take those strengths and make them stronger? How do you take your weaknesses and make them smaller? Because a lot of the time when we speak about South African football, we speak as though it's bad. Hey, lahle yonke man. Lahle. Umfundo uyatribula. Lahla. Instead of going, technically, he doesn't lose the ball. He's press resistant. Let's work on that. I wonder if he can learn how to run. Let's teach him how to run like this. Let's teach him when the game is quiet, we do this. Why do we send our players to Europe? We send our players to Europe because at Europe, they teach them the boring things. What's stopping us from adding those boring things to our football already and building from that and making it strong? And it's going to take resources similar to what Tate Motsepe has put towards it. And you look at SAFA, and you look at the PSL, you look at the teams, you look at our academies, you look at our development, and you're going, but you guys don't have a commitment to doing that. You want your work to be done for you. You want Pep to figure out this new style of play and implement it and play it at Man City, then you foster, come. And you foster players that don't understand what you're doing. Instead of looking at your problems and solving them. Then, on the other side of it, now we have to battle with the other side. You know, this idea of Middendorp not being liked at Kaizer Chiefs and he left because of the style of play is not new. We had coaches like, I believe his name was Jeff Butler in the 80s and the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, who won everything. Like he did trebles. They still kicked him out because the fans hated him. Now Stuart Baxter, 2 leagues, kicked out. Ernst Middendorp gets us to the final day, kicked out because of the style of football. Is there then, if you're not going to invest, maybe then you need to sell out completely on this side and say, that has been our most successful football. And I'm not even lying when I say that. In the last 15, 20 years, that has been our most successful football. It put trophies into our hands. It put us so close to the top. It got us into the Champions League. But we're still fighting against it. So maybe, like I'm saying, as Chairman Klopp, you are saying, we should not be slaves to our previous successes. Because those previous successes are different environments, different people, different capabilities, different skills. It was a different world. Maybe we need to swallow our pride and say, guys, maybe that's where we need to go then. And I'm specifically saying it because we're not nurturing the other side. We're not nurturing our football. We're not modernizing our football. And when I say modernize, I mean, can we get the books and the papers and the tactics that are South African, where we know ourselves fully? Because we're also diluting when we bring in a lot of foreign coaches and a lot of people that come in, and they come in with their own ideas that come from built up places that side, with their own theories and philosophies and books and breakdowns and all of that stuff. And that makes us lose a little bit of the thing. Let's not rely on our natural gifts. Let's build on them. We've got some of the greatest minds in football, yet we're so European focused. Instead of looking back and going, and then when the European comes and they win, you look at them and you go, again. Something needs to be done and we need to move in a certain way, but it might mean that you have to forget about what you know and look to the future, or you have to really know what you know, deep down scientifically, in order to move forward.